Hey guys, it is Melissa and welcome back to my channel. First and foremost, I want to apologize to any of you guys that are my loyal viewers, which is so awesome because I know that there's some of you out there. So thank you. Thank you for understanding. I did not upload last week. I uploaded on Saturday, which was not a normal true crime video. So if you are new here, my name is Melissa Allen. I do true crime videos. My entire intention with doing these videos is to raise awareness on missing persons and unsolved cases. And sometimes we cover solved cases, usually when there's some sort of a message that we can use in previous or future cases, or something that was intriguing and worth talking about, something notable in history. So today, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about a notorious con artist. And here's the reason why. So if you are new here and you don't want to hear this story about something that happened on my channel with a scammer and a giveaway, then there will be a timestamp that pops up so you can skip ahead and get right into that video. But if you are with me, then I want to tell you guys what happened and why I uploaded something different on Saturday. I needed a break in the true crime for a minute because I was saddened by what had happened. So that's why on Saturday I uploaded the video with my kid. If you guys like that, by the way, let me know. I don't plan on doing that very often, but it was fun. Like, we just had so much fun. And that video could get no views whatsoever, and it will be like a cherished memory. But if you do like kids, I mean, you gotta have cute kid humor, then make sure you guys check it out. I will link it for you because it is honestly, I thought, freaking hilarious. But he's my kid, so I just might think they're funny. Anyways, what had happened was a week and a half ago on my channel, we did a giveaway. And the way that I did the giveaway was it was the first $100 that I had earned here on YouTube. And it took like 2 months to earn that money. And I wanted to give it back. My thinking and my thought is if you give love into the world, then good things will happen for you. And I just thought, whatever, you guys can think I'm crazy, but I just feel like by doing something like that, like something good, that like maybe one of our cases will get solved, or maybe I'll be able to help with a case. Like, I don't know. I really have these like crazy thoughts, sometimes like way too idealistic. I know I live in La La Land, which is why I got scammed. Okay? That's the truth of it, because I believe people too much. So I posted the giveaway and then I posted the winner. And the winner was a gal by the name of Tiffany. And I put in the video, contact me on any of my social medias and I'll verify you and we'll be good to go. So I post it and then I tried to message the person, but like through YouTube, I don't know how, and it wouldn't let me. So I commented under the person's name and was like, hey, contact me, you're the winner. And then I get a message on Instagram from what looks like an account belonging to this Tiffany. And it's got the pictures and it looks the same. So I'm like, yeah. And I was like, yay, congrats. And we chat back and forth for a little bit. And I was like, hey, do me a favor though. Can you go onto YouTube and leave a comment with your account under my comment? That way everyone knows the winner's been contacted and like it's very obvious that it's you. I can verify that it's you. So I get a comment from immediately, like, oh yeah, I'm going to go over there. And I get a comment from what looks like Tiffany saying like, hey, I contacted you on Instagram. So I'm like, yes, like we're good to go. Like this is the right person. And then they asked me to send them a picture of the gift card rather than mailing it. And yeah, I'm admitting that one out loud. Like I'm a dumbass because I did it. And I knew better. Like I knew like that's not right. That's not normal. But they gave me such a good reason and it made sense. And so I sent the $50. And then, of course, several days later, the correct Tiffany contacts me and is like, hey, I'm sorry it took me a couple days. I didn't see the message. I'm so excited. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I already talked to the winner. I'm such an ass. And she's like, oh, no, like, that's me, but that's fine. Like, but like, no, I didn't talk to you. And I knew right then and there, I was like, you dumbass just wasted $50. I'm like, So, here's the deal. Number one, it's just $50. Like, I'm not rich or anything, but it's just $50. Whatever. Like, everything I've been doing right now is all an investment. It's all a chance. I'm taking a risk. Like, it's not that $50 isn't a big deal, okay? Like, that is what it is. This is just part of the doing business, okay? But number two, it hurt my heart. I really thought that by doing this that I would get a moment of feeling happy in the world, like something good happened, and like you put something good out into the world and something good happened, and so it's really disheartening when you put something good in the world and then you got a bad in there. But that's how it was meant to be, right? That's how it's meant to be. It was meant to be on my giveaway for $50 versus a giveaway eventually that's going to be $500. Like, you know what I mean? It didn't, it's fine. It happened on this giveaway and not the next one. So that's fine. So I waited a week, and now I'm sure that it's the correct Tiffany. I am sending her a $50 gift card out today. Now that I'm good, I am completely happy. I know that it's her, and I want this for, you know, I want this. I want her to be happy. I want this to receive this gift card. And I want her to feel good. And I hope she has a great time with it. And the charity that she chose for her $50 donation to go to is the St. Jude's Home. So I'm going to send her $50, and I'm going to donate the $50, and I will make sure those screenshots go up for you guys. So that is done. We had our first, as far as I'm concerned, successful giveaway. Because that $50 that I spent was in basically security. So for the next giveaway, I will be more careful. You know what I mean? It's all a lesson. And I'm sorry that it got me down, guys. It did. It disappointed me. It made me question what I was doing and how I was doing it and whether or not it was bringing a positive impact. And I shouldn't have let something so small like that derail me even for a minute. So we are back on track. And thank you for the inspiration, because we are going to do a video on Sante Kimes. If you are not familiar with who Sante Kimes is, her and her son are some of the most notorious con artists ever in existence. They are crazy, and they are murderers. So we're going to talk about them. So thank you guys so much for sticking with me. If you like seeing these kinds of videos about murderers and con artists, true crime, not about giveaways, true crime videos, then make sure you guys subscribe and hit the like button and comment and all that good stuff, because I do appreciate and I see it, and I do try to comment back with you guys. Sometimes I will not know what to say. Some comments are very interesting, but for the most part, you guys are awesome. I really appreciate everything you guys do, and continue to support this channel, because I really think we're going to keep doing great things. So I love you guys, and let's jump right into the video. Okay, so Sante Kimes, and here's the deal. Let's talk about pronunciation of the name. I watched the Larry King interview directly with her, and he referred to her as Sante. And I watched the 2020 interview, which had her family members in it, and they said Sante, like a Sante. There's all these different pronunciations. What had happened was she was actually born Sandra Louise, and she went by Sante. I want to say it's Sante. So some sort of like, Is that a word? But you know what I mean? Like, she had this like air about herself, this kind of stuck up, this kind of beautiful, this kind of thing about her. And so I would imagine that it was probably Sante. Yeah. True story. When I was little, I don't know why I'm going to tell this story. My maiden name is Jackson, which is why my little kid's name is Jackson. And I didn't want everyone, because they always called me Michael Jackson, duh, blah, blah. And so I remember in like 3rd grade, I was like, it's not Jackson, it's Jackson. And I remember I said it to like my 3rd grade teacher, and I remember going, oh, okay. She was a lovely teacher. She didn't break my spirit yet. Anyways, it was not Jackson. So I just picture being Sante. Anyways, so Sante was born in 1934 here in America. Her father was from India. So her last name was Singers. And her father was a magician, an herbal doctor. So he seemed to be kind of into the magical world, kind of a traveling type thing. And her mother was a Presbyterian, and her family was not okay with this. So you have a white woman from a Presbyterian church, and her father was a pastor, and then you have an Indian man who's come to America and who's in sort of into herbs and things like that. So they did not approve of this marriage, but they were married and they moved to Oklahoma. They had 2 older children, a daughter and a son. They had Sante, and then they had a younger child. 2020 actually interviewed her estranged sister, which is going to be the youngest sister, and that's about where they got a lot of information about her life. Because according to Sante, her father was an abusive drunk who left them. I believe that's what she said. And her mother was a prostitute who sold herself. Okay. According to her sister, her little sister, that is not true. Her father died when they were young, and the mother worked several jobs to support them. She cleaned houses, she did linen. There was a lot of like small jobs that she did to support her 4 children by herself. She was not a prostitute, nothing like that whatsoever. And eventually, the oldest sister got married and moved away. She ran away from home. She just left, pretty much. And I think that was like way long time ago. So she just kind of took off. And then the older brother was really close to Sante. And the youngest sister even said that they had an inappropriate relationship. That it always felt like the older brother was like touching her in weird spots, hugging her too closely, and just having all around inappropriate relations with her. Eventually, the older brother, after the father had died, he became really aggressive and mean. And the younger sister said that when he moved out, he actually assaulted the mother by punching her, making her bleed, and stealing her jewelry, including her wedding ring and her money, and leaving, and was never seen again. Now, Sante was incredibly offended by this because he just left her without saying goodbye. And this was the brother she was the closest with. And at this time, she's only like 9, 10, 11. They didn't say exactly the year, but she moved when she was 12. So it's got to be like 9, 10, 11. Like, she is young, which is, even worse. I just picture, my kid's only 9. That is weird to be having, anyways, to have those kind of relationships with siblings. Like, that's just gross. Anyways, that's what was reported. So at this point, now it is the mother, Sante, and her younger sister. And they had decided to move to Los Angeles. So once they were in Los Angeles, the mom was hoping that a change of scenery would help, but it didn't. At the age of 12, so they had been in LA about a year, and at the age of 12, Sante met a local couple that owned a local soda shop and movie theater. And she would go hang out there. Now, at this time, the mom had like no control over her. Sante was a mess. And she was not just like running away, sneaking out, going wherever she wanted. She would go into fits of rage. And the younger sister said it happened at least 3 times a day. And she was literally uncontrollable. She did whatever she wanted. And she threw such bad fits that eventually she got what she wanted because nobody wanted to fight her anymore. So she ends up going and she's hanging out at this shop. She convinces the people there that her mom is like this prostitute who's not taking care of her, who's just not there for her at all. So the people at the soda shop felt really bad for her. They're like, oh, this poor girl, like she just needs help. She needs a stable home. They end up asking her if she would like to be adopted by their sister. I think it was the sister of the wife. And they lived in Carson, Nevada, and wanted to know how she would feel about going to live with them. And she was excited. They went home to talk to her mother about it. And her mom was like, okay. That just goes to show you how bad it was. And the youngest sister said that when Sante moved away and was adopted by this family, that the day she left, her and her mother did a dance. That is sad. You have to be just one heck of a kid that your parent is like, bye and woohoo. So once she went to Nevada, she was adopted by the Chambers family. Now the Chambers family actually had another child, a young boy who's about 7 that they adopted. So now they had Sante and they had this little boy and they were raising them as their own. In fact, Sante even changed her name to Chambers and she started going by her original name, which is Sandra. So she became Sandy Chambers. And this was all an attempt to fit in better. And she started wearing, because she was of a mixed race, she did have a more olive skin. So she started wearing much lighter powder. She started wearing the nicest clothes, the most modern hairdos. And she was strikingly beautiful. People compared her to Elizabeth Taylor. She had long black hair. She had the makeup. She had the clothes. She had an air about herself. She had beautiful teeth. And she just was all around beautiful. And then, oh, I wish I remembered who said it, but there was on one of the shows that I watched, and somebody's like, she was strikingly beautiful like Elizabeth Taylor, but a more rough version. You could tell that she had a little more grit to her. Now, despite all of these things that were going wonderful in her life and this wonderful family she had, she continued to do things that she had done before. Her youngest sister reported that she used to torture her. She would do things like put matches between her fingertips to see how long they took to burn, hold her hand over fire. She said she used to take pins and needles and poke the animals. It's just, all in all, not good. When she went to the new family, she used to do the same thing with some of the neighborhood kids, and she just would like. And I remember as a kid, I remember me and my cousins that were like the close age, like we would like do funky things, like, you know, let me see if I can punch you in the arm and see if you can take it. But never in my life did we ever like beat each other up or torture each other, and this definitely wasn't roughhousing or like, you know, when you try and trap someone under the blanket, or you're just trying to do funny things to each other. Like, we were rough kids. I mean, that's what it is. But this was definitely further than that. This was like torturous behavior and like waiting until someone cried and then keep going. And that's not what normal kid play. So this is how it was. There were also stories of her upstaging of people, her constant need to be the center of attention. She had a friend who had been elected a cheerleader. And so if you're a cheerleader, you're elected onto the team, you're chosen, you made the squad, you have a uniform. And so these two cheerleaders, these friends of hers, were going to a game. Well, Sante and her friend Ruth followed right along in cheerleading uniforms and then tried to upstage them the entire time. And it's like those things you just like think of people when you see someone do something like that, you just kind of cringe because it's so uncomfortable. It's like, what are you doing? You're not on the team. Why are you here? Why are you in a uniform? That kind of stuff. So that was the kind of person she was. She didn't really care. She would just go right in front of people and upstage them and put herself in the limelight, and she was fine with it. She also had an issue with shoplifting, and in 1950 she was arrested for stealing a lipstick. The thing is she didn't need to steal it. She could afford it, but she did, and she was arrested for it. The charges were eventually dropped, and she moved on. And in 1952, she graduated from high school. Now, in 1956, she married Lee Powers. Now, the thing is that she told him she was pregnant so that he would marry her. And this is the marriage that people were always confused about because Lee didn't have money. He enlisted in the military, and she was going to be a stay-at-home wife. Well, eventually, it was obvious that she was not pregnant, and their marriage did not work. It only lasted a year, and she moved away. I think that she was thinking she could be a stay-at-home wife and live off his income, and then she realized that was boring because she wanted a more lavish lifestyle, and that was it. They divorced, and 6 months later, in 1957, she was married again. This time she married an old boyfriend by the name of Ed Walker. Now, Ed was a successful contractor in the Sacramento, California area. Now, Ed started to notice things about Sante, but it seemed that he wasn't quite sure. He knew some things about shoplifting. I believe he suspected some affairs. What started happening is, so he had a successful contracting business, and in December of 1960, one of his houses caught fire, and the fire was suspicious, but they collected the insurance money. Throughout time, more and more and more of his houses continued to burn down, and all of the fires were suspicious. Her son, Kent Walker, which was Ed's son as well, he even said that fires were obvious, and this was in the 2020 interview, and he says like there would be like a fire started on one side, but a iron was lit on the other side of the house. Like it was like obvious type stuff that like everyone knew something wasn't right. And Sante herself was making sure that she collected the insurance payout checks. So things weren't right. And she was having affairs with his wealthy business partners that he worked with. It just wasn't a good situation all the way around. Now, as we mentioned, she did have a son, Kent. Ed and her son, he described his mother as a wonderful mother. So she might have been a con artist and a murderer and everything else that we're going to talk about, But to him, she was a great mom when he was younger. She birthday parties and just really took care of him. And he said, yeah, it was probably all stolen. But she was a great mom, very devoted, and loved Kent very much. In 1967, so when Kent was about 5 years old, she decided that after the marriage was over with his father, she moved them to Palm Springs and set her eyes on a man with money. She read a magazine about a man by the name of Kenneth who was worth over $20 million, and decided that that was the one. She went after him for over a year. She made up her mind that he was the one, and she was going to get his attention. Now, eventually, she did move into his Newport Beach home with him. And here's what it was, is he was worth a ton of money. And he was very clear that his money was going to his 2 children that he had. And he was in love with Sante, though. Like, he was in love with her. There was a friend that explained that when he met him, he said, just wait till you meet Sante, baby. That's what he called her. She's just amazing. She's beautiful. She's wonderful. But I'll never marry her. And when asked why, he was like, because she'll just take all my money, and my money's going to my children. So obviously she decided that she needed an heir of his, and she became pregnant. And that is when she became pregnant with Kenny. Now, eventually they all moved to Hawaii, where they lived in several different homes. And this is where her first bout of trouble really started. While on the island, she always had maids. And at one point, somebody asked her, how do you get such good help? Because apparently getting help in Hawaii was a lot more difficult than here in like California because of access. And she's like, oh, and she's kind of snooty about it. She's like, oh, maybe one day when we're really good friends, I'll tell you my secret, how I get my little slaves. And I just love them. They're so wonderful, but they're mine. And the lady remembers being like, oh, I don't really call my housekeepers slaves. Like, that's very outdated thinking. But we'll get more into that in a second. So the 4 of them are there in Hawaii. So you've got Kenneth, the father, you've got Sante, you've got the youngest child, which is Kenny, and then the older child, Kent. Now, they're there in Hawaii, and Kenny is homeschooled. He is kept very much away from everyone, lives a very sheltered life. Everyone considered him to be Sante's little prince. They were very, very, very close. Very touchy, very feely, and they just had a bond that was very different. Now, one of the stories that was told about, just to kind of understand how Sante was with Kenny, there was a tutor who was interviewed on 2020, and she said that Kenny had a problem with lying. Now, remember, he is just a little boy, okay? I'm thinking around this time he was like 5, 6, 7. So his tutor decides to tell him of the story of the boy who cried wolf, and which is a great tool. I've used this with my own kids. Like, there's nothing wrong with telling the story. It's a good story. And Sante grabs the tutor by the arm when Kenny goes and tells his parents about this good story he just heard, grabs him by the arm, grabs her by the arm, takes her upstairs, throws her on the bed, and says, listen here, you will not be teaching my child about that. There is a time to lie and there's a time to not, and I will be the one who teaches my child when to lie. That's weird. So now in 1979, they decided to return back and moved to Las Vegas. And it was just Sante, Kenneth Sr., Kenny, and the maids. Now, Kent, who was 17 at this time, decided to stay behind and live in Hawaii. It's reported that at this point, he was just really tired of his mother and living with her. At this point, authorities had already received reports involving Sante and her situation with her maids. And nothing had really been done, but they'd been receiving reports for a couple of years. In 1985, there was enough reports, and a maid who had come forward who had escaped and basically said, look, I was assaulted with an iron. I've been beaten with hangers. I've never been paid. And that's when it started coming out that Sante was actually going to Mexico and finding workers, promising them a good life in America, that they would get to live in her home for free, that she would pay them, take care of them, they would get vacations, that they would have a good life. And these people would come and then they would be trapped in her home, literally trapped. They were never paid. They were never allowed to leave without her, and they were severely mistreated. It's actual slavery. Okay, so in 1985, Sante Kimes and Kenneth Kimes were arrested for slavery. It is actually referred to as involuntary servitude. And in 1985, there was an actual couple arrested in America for involuntary servitude. Kenneth decided to take a plea deal, and he admitted that he was not a part of the mistreatment of the maids, but that he knew about it and did nothing about it. And Sante eventually pled guilty and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Kenny was now 10 years old, and his father did not go to prison, but his mother did, and he was left to live with his father. This was probably one of the best times of his life. His father did not hire the tutors again, and instead enrolled him in a private elite Catholic school, but he could actually go to school. He was no longer homeschooled, and they said he did great. He was charismatic, he was social, he made friends, he was involved, he went to football games. He wasn't a kid that like required everyone to like him, but everyone kind of did. He was very active and had a great life. He became incredibly close to his father, and it was reported that like their house became like the hangout spot for all the young boys in the neighborhood. They would all come and hang out, and he was really living a very good life. And when his mother was set to be released, it was said that he was very stressed out about it. He did not want her to come home. He did go see her every single month, and he was very close to her, but it seemed that he had realized that he did not want her in control of his life again, that he was happy with how things were going. As soon as his mother returned, when he was in his late teens, he cut him off, and he changed schools, and he was no longer allowed to talk to any of the prior friends. According to Kent, the older brother, who was now married, had a child, and was moved on, he said that Kenny hated his mother at this point, like hated her, and even made, crude comments like he wanted to kill her. Like he hated her at this moment. He did not want her in control of his life again. And of course, once Sante was home, they began to move from house to house like they used to before, instead of staying in the one stable home that he had become used to. Now, eventually, Kenny did enroll in school. He decided to attend the University of California, Santa Barbara, and he ended up dropping out. He started I think he only did 1 year. He was doing a Cuban cigar company with his mother. They would actually travel to Cuba and buy cigars and sell them online. And when they started doing this appears to be when his father, Kenneth Sr., passed away in 1994. It seemed to be a turning point for him because that's when he officially dropped out of school and was doing this business, and seemed to be that he was back under the control of his mother. But up to that point, he had seemed happy in his business. Now, okay, so Kenneth Sr. passed away in 1994. Now, remember, in the very beginning, when she wanted to date this millionaire, it was all for the hopes of getting into his will. That never happened. Kenneth never put her in the will, and he never put Kenny Kimes, his son, into the will either. So all of his money went to his 2 other children from a previous marriage. Now, it appears, though, in 1996 that Sante and Kenny actually took a trip to the Bahamas trying to secretly withdraw money out of his overseas accounts. But they never got money out. But there was a banker that they were meeting with in the Bahamas in 1996. They went to dinner with him. They were seen having dinner with him. And he knew something wasn't right. He was questioning them withdrawing the money. And then he went and had dinner with them. He was never seen again. Never seen again. He completely disappeared. And Sante and Kenny returned back to their home. Now, in 1998, there was a fire at the Kimes' home. Kenny and Sante had been living there. Then there was a fire. And then that's when they found that there was a businessman by the name David Kaznyk, and he was a local businessman that Sante knew very well. He received in the mail, back in the day, instead of going online to pay bills, you actually got a little booklet, and it had little coupons that you ripped out. So like when you'd want to pay your mortgage, like, you know how you write a check and you rip it out? So you would write your check on your check, and then you'd also have a little booklet that was like your payment stubs, and you would rip those off, and you would have to like write your information and put it in the envelope with the check. Now it's like you just put your account number or whatever on the check, but it was very like you had a payment stub book for sending in payments. And so Mr. Kaznyk receives one of these in the mail for the Kimes household. And he's like, what's going on? And he calls Sante and he's like, I don't understand. And it turns out that they had taken a loan out on this house under Mr. Kaznyk's name. They had actually transferred the deed of the house into his name so that they could take out a second loan and then set fire to this house to collect the insurance money. And on March 14th of 1998, Mr. Kaznyk's body was found in a dumpster near the airport. So the resolution of the house and the insurance money and everything that happened was never figured out because he was found dead. Now, Sante and Kenny were immediately suspects in this crime, and they went on the run. Now, they obviously set their sights on their next adventure of how they were going to earn money, and they were doing it together. At this point, they're obviously 100% working together, mother and son, crime duo. Like, they were out to take money from people. I can't imagine doing that to your child. When he went to prison, he was 25 years old. Still a boy. All right. They went to New York City and they found a woman in her 80s by the name of Irene Silverman. She was a wealthy socialite in New York. She lived in a posh brownstone in New York City. I believe it was on 53rd. It was on 56th Street. And what she was doing is she was kind of lonely and she had this beautiful brownstone. And so she was kind of renting out rooms, kind of like a hotel, kind of like a roommate situation. And she was renting her apartment. Now, typically what she did is when she would get a new person in, is she would do basically like a background check. She would verify their identity. She would verify their references. But she received a man who came to her door by the name of Manny Guerin. Now, he explained that he had lost his luggage, that he didn't have his identity with him. He had a whole woe of stories that seemed to make sense. He was a very charming young man, and he had $6,000 cash. And so Irene Silverman decided to let it be and decided to let him rent room 1B. Within a couple of months, on July 2nd of 1998, Sante actually took these steps to falsify documents to transfer the deed of Irene's $7 million estate into her own name and was having it notarized. The plan was to sell the home and then keep the money. 3 days later, Irene went missing. Now, when police came to the home after the report of Irene missing, it was very quick. The thing is that Irene was in her 80s. And while she was still vibrant and spunky and outgoing and involved and loved to do things, she had 10 different helpers in her home and rarely left her home without help. Somebody needed to take her, help her get in and out of the vehicle, just make sure that she could overall get through her day. She did not go without someone in her staff helping her. Now, in a twist of events, Kenny and Sante were actually arrested that night at a hotel nearby. The thing is they had nothing to do with Irene of why they were arrested. They were arrested for a bad check that they had written a couple months prior, and it had just caught up with them. When they were trying to buy a car, they wrote a check, and because it was a bad check, they were found. And so they were arrested. When they were arrested, in Sante's purse, they found Irene's ID. Now, at this point, it doesn't appear that they had computers working like we do now because they didn't quite catch on to it as quickly because Irene had just been reported missing, so it wasn't quite in their system for everyone to know. And within a couple of days, the detectives started putting things together. There were more documents that Sante had on her with Irene's name. They were kind of wanting to understand that. And on top of that, the detective that was handling the bad check case with Sante and Kenny saw on the news Irene was missing, and they put up a composite drawing of the roommate Manny Guerin, because the thing about that roommate is that he was now missing. Well, Manny Guerin was obviously Kenny Kimes. So now he's like, whoa, hold on. I've got this Kenny Kimes here that looks just like this composite drawing of Manny Guerin, and I've got his mother who's got Irene Silverman's documents in her purse. They started going through and they found all these notebooks where basically Sante and Kenny were literally keeping notes of everything about Irene. Like they were tracking her movements, where she went, what she did. money, like they literally kept it all in notebooks. Like they just like, here's what we're doing today. Now, eventually Sante and Kenny were tried. They were convicted of second-degree murder of Irene Silverman. They were then extradited to California to stand trial for David Kaznyk. They ended up receiving 120 years in prison. And in 1998, like it's so dumb to watch. Like it's crazy. You have to watch the Larry King interviews. He goes on, Kenny does, and he's just like this like serious like, my name is Kenny Kimes and I've been framed. I am like America's greatest person ever and I would never do anything wrong. And there's this big conspiracy theory out to get me. And then Sante goes on and she's like talking about basically boistering themselves. Like it's, if you watch it and you think about it, it's eerie. She literally is like, this is America's greatest cover up ever. We are the, like basically she wants them to be the most notorious people ever, but she also wants them to be innocent because they didn't do anything wrong. Like this was all a cover up. She literally, you try to ask her anything about what they did and how the evidence that she had, and she's like, no, just read the transcripts. You'll see everyone's out to get us and it's all a cover up. And, you know, New York is under, you know, investigation and it's being monitored. Yeah, but like, it's like she boasts herself more than anyone else ever could. And they really think that they are the most like intriguing, stellar people ever, but they're innocent. They're innocent. But why would anybody want to spend that much time to frame you across multiple states? Like, no, you're crazy. You really did this. A couple of things to mention that were interesting. So during the verdict, Kenny actually left when he was convicted and sentenced. At one point, he did hold a journalist hostage in the prison for 4 hours. He's admitted, but then he said he was framed, but he's already admitted what he did. To make sure that I have the timing correct, so they were extradited in 2000 and 2001 to California to stand the trial for David Kaznyk. Now, in that trial, Kenny did take a plea deal, and he pled guilty. And his only condition was that his mother not get the death penalty because he was very worried about his mother. Just like his mother is 100% only worried about him. Like she is just always, he's my boy. He's innocent. He's so young. He doesn't deserve this. He didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, he did. On May 19th of 2014, Sante Kimes did pass away in prison of natural causes. She was at the Bedford Hills Correctional Facility for Women when she passed. And at this time, Kenny is still in prison, and he is housed at a prison in California. I will make sure to link down everything for you guys below. There are a couple of resources. The 2020 interview was really great. The Larry King interviews that happened with Sante and with Kenny are very intriguing. But I want to make sure I really shoot out a podcast, Once Upon a Crime. It is freaking phenomenal. That's where I learned about Sante and Kenny. Like, I actually learned about them, like about their person, about how this happened, about how they lived their life. So it's very, very, like, if you want to do all in one and really get a gist, the podcast is amazing. And I actually found it here on YouTube, so I will link it for you as well. So that will give you an overall, and then if you want to just dive in a little bit, I'll give you the other links as well. So thank you guys again for always watching and supporting, and I really appreciate it. I'm going to do another video here in a little bit, so I'm gonna get this one recorded, I'm gonna get the next one recorded, and then I'm gonna be editing so we can go boom 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 and actually get out some videos for you guys. So again, thank you guys so much for watching from the bottom of my heart. I truly appreciate it. Hug your babies, hug your loves. Life is literally too short and too precious. I love you guys, and you all have a wonderful day.